I would like to take a quick look around the collection. This is known as the Christensen Collection down here in Grapevine, Texas, believe it or not. I'm originally from Green Bay, but this has been a passion of mine for the last 25 years of amassing all the Packer history and artifacts that I could. And what I'd like to do is kind of show you a few of them. Thank you. This is a great collection of original newspaper press photos. And these are, a lot of them you can see, they're real iconic. These are photos that ran in national newspapers, and you find them in all sorts of books on Packer history. So a very fun portion of my collection to have here. License plate toppers going back to the 1920s. This is a great collection. Very hard to find some of these. And I've still got room for one. I know there's one more out there that I don't have. A passion of mine with the collection is collecting vintage felt pennants. These pennants go all the way from the 1920s to the 1960s. That's kind of where I have my cutoff. And I just love them because they show such history, and I love the colorful printing and so forth, and just the mere fact that they've made it through so many years of moths and who knows what else lurking in basements of Wisconsin. But this is probably one of the most complete collections of pennants that is in the U.S. As far as Green Bay Packer pennants. And they're kind of hard to show them all off. I've got a few of them up on the ceiling even, as space is very, very valuable for me. And there is approximately 100 different pennants from the start of the Packers to the early or late 60s. So it's quite a collection, and very, very hard to put together, I'll tell you that. This is one that I have been working on for about 25 years. And still got a few that I know of that are out there that I don't have, but I'm always looking for them. Have to excuse me if I'm a little bit bumpy getting around my locker room here, trying to show you all of the pennants. Got some real rare ones over here on this little wall. But like I said, that's something that's really been a passion of mine, is collecting the pennants. I love collecting game used articles, just like most collectors, but I have a great collection of sideline coats, sideline sweaters, capes, jackets from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And a lot of them are really, really hard to find, and so historic for people that follow the Packers. So I'm definitely proud of that particular area of my collection. I built these lockers, replicated them from some old pictures that I found of the Packer locker rooms of the 1960s. So I put a lot of my favorite players in here. Got another locker room I'll show you in a little bit, but yeah, some of the highlights that I have. This is a 1968 Pro Bowl helmet worn by Donnie Anderson, running back for the Green Bay Packers. And here's a 1968 Pro Bowl helmet of Carroll Dales, wide receiver of the Packers. Those are certainly very cool. Got a lot of the key players in here. Like I said, I've got another locker room that I'll be showing you here in a little bit. One of the favorite things that people, believe it or not, that draws people when they come to see my collection is this turnstile that came directly from Lambeau Field. Absolutely love having this thing, and all the fans that went through there over the years, it's very, very cool to have. Over here I've got some great original Green Bay Packer trunks. This particular one is Curly Lambeau's trunk from the early 30s. And got others here that I've collected of various people that were associated with the Packers. And here we've got some Super Bowl I and Super Bowl II hats that the fans wore in the stands, and an old Packer megaphone. I think that it doubled as a popcorn container, if I'm not mistaken. Over here are stacks of original Packer helmet decals from when they were first made. My dad worked for the company that designed or they printed the original Packer logos. So he had those in his belongings. I have a lot of, certainly game-used cleats, and I've got a very broad range of helmets, signed helmets of the 60s players, and of course Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre. But here's a great sideline raincoat from the 1960s, 1970s. It's Brett Favre's sideline coat, specifically from the 95 championship, I believe, NFL championship, where they beat Carolina. These are cool. Ray Nitschke's NFL Player of the Year from 1968. That's a Timmy trophy. And over here is Paul Hornung's 1961 Player of the Year trophy. Definitely incredible Packer history there. Here's a vintage 1958 poster for the Packers' second year in the New City Stadium, which would be renamed Lambeau Field at some point. Great 1962 broadside schedule. And I have a lot of these incredible banners from when the Lambeau Field or New City Stadium was first built in 1957. And of course, Green Bay was Titletown, USA in the 1960s. And that's a great banner that used to hang not only at the stadium, but around town. And that's a must for any Packer fan. Packer collector, I mean. I get a lot of comments on this Bart Starr statue. It's 350 pounds. It was from a shoe store called Just for Feet, and they went out of business years ago. I was able to get one of them, and that's actually a Bart Starr game-issued jersey. And, of course, 1960s coach's coat and hat. And along here, this was an incredible find, and that is the actual Green Bay Packer practice field sign that hung in the 1960s and 70s over the practice field in Green Bay. So somebody found that up in the rafters of their garage. So somehow it ended up down here in Texas. And again, I built these cabinets to house a lot of my nicer things. After you've been collecting for 25 years, you've got to kind of pick and choose what you're going to display. And I literally have a few storage rooms full of items that I could have out if I had the room. But these cabinets right here house some of the most valuable footballs that I have. These are all game-used footballs here, signed by Vince Lombardi and the team, or Curly Lambeau and the team on some of them. And these are game-used balls and trophy balls given to players after the game. And here's actually a Curly Lambeau. You can see that signature right there. That's an old Curly Lambeau ball there. And then we have signature balls that bear the signatures of all the Packer players and all the various Packer championship teams of the 60s. This is a 1930s football signed by the likes of Don Hutson and Curly Lambeau. That's another kind of hard to read trophy ball from the 1930s. But as you can see, I've got quite a few original signed footballs here. Love this part of my collection. And here we are at another cabinet. And you can see that we continue with more signed Lombardi balls and Packer teams, various championship teams of the 60s. Absolutely love finding these and preserving the history that each one of these have with it. This is a great night ball, Green Bay Packer night ball from the 1950s, signed by the team. And then, down here I've got a collection of pinbacks, all very old pinbacks from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. This is probably the oldest one that I have. This is 1929. These are extremely, extremely, extremely rare. These are actually mirrors, pocket mirrors, and very, very hard to find if you can ever find one of them, much less both of them. Put those back in there. Okay. Very cool part of the display right here. Of course, what collection isn't complete without replica Super Bowl trophies? But, amongst the replicas, I've got actual 1965 championship ring, Super Bowl I, Super Bowl II rings, a lot of Lombardi jewelry here. He loved giving his players staff and wives and everybody jewelry and gifts. He was very, very generous if you won for him. This is a great Reggie White 75th anniversary team pin that I got from his family. This is an incredible trophy. I love having this. This was presented to Vince Lombardi in 1960. It was their first winning season in a long time, and the Chamber of Commerce was so excited about it they gave him an award. Here is an actual game-used 65 NFL champion ball where the Packers defeated the Browns at Lambeau Field. This was Paul Brown's last game with the Cleveland Browns, so it's a real historic piece. It actually still has mud in there. That game was known as a Mud Bowl. This is probably my favorite item right here. Is one of two or three at most known game-used ice bowl balls. And to have this is a dream come true. I used to look at the one that they have at the Packer Hall of Fame, and I was like, well, that's for sure something I'd never be able to get hold of. But lo and behold, there was one out there. And if you touch it, it's still cold. Believe it or not, it's still frozen from that day. This is a great piece. It's Bart Starr's playbook from 1966. This was from camp, and it's got all of his notes in it, handwritten notes, and plays. It has a famous Packer power sweep in there, and all the rules about camp and so forth. So, very cool piece. Over in this area, it's a little bit hard to see here, but what I've got are I've got all of the programs and ticket stubs from all the Packer championships over the years, and very cool collection. It's fun to put it together, and it's kind of what I like to do is just find a project like this and just hunt until I get it completed. So this one took a little bit to find all of it, but I'm happy that I completed it. So I'll take you into the newest locker room. I added this a few years later after I had this first room filled up, so I took over another room. But this is kind of a cool room. I kind of copied the lockers from the current Packer locker room, and the carpeting is actually the top of the P from the Packers end zone from Super Bowl 45. I was able to purchase that, and makes a very cool carpet in the locker room here. Everybody seems to love it. A lot of people have knelt down and kissed it, and after they do that, I remind them how players normally spit all the time, and you wouldn't believe how fast they wipe their lips. But over here we've got pieces of these are original bleachers from Lambeau Field City Stadium, New City Stadium. When the stadium was first built, they put wood bleachers in. Now it's all aluminum, but they took these out in 1969. So we were able to get a few long boards to make a bench out of. Over here is a 1950s and 60s sideline bench. And on this wall is one of three benches that was used in the Ice Bowl. And it's actually an Ice Bowl goal line marker right there. And here's a picture of the Ice Bowl, and you can see that goal line marker right there. But yeah, this bench is just incredible. There's one in the NFL Hall of Fame. There's one in the Packer Hall of Fame, I believe. And this is the other one. I've got some great 1960s sideline bags, equipment bags here. Like I said, I built all these lockers and have various uniforms in them. All of stars of the Packers over the year: Bart Starr, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Reggie White, Jim Taylor, Donnie Anderson. A lot of game-used jerseys and pants, and these are Jim Taylor's cleats right here, and game-used helmets in some cases, and certainly that's a pretty worn-out game jersey, and probably after that a practice jersey of Donnie Anderson. Here's Jim Grabowski from the 60s. Those were the $1 Million Twins there, the Packers. Doug Hart's game-used jersey. On this wall, I've got incredible Packer history. 1920s, 1930s programs and bulletins. Just incredibly rare. It's unbelievable that these things lasted over the years. And I'm so excited to have these. in my collection. Incredible broadside from 1934 and matchbook covers from the 40s. Neat collection of old Packer stocks all the way back to Indian Packing Corporation in 1919 and 1950s stock and Acme Packing Company stock. Of course, the Packers originally were the Acme Packers, so that's where they had their namesake from. And that's a great piece. It's a feasibility study I found at a rummage sale up in Green Bay where they were actually going to put a roof over Lambeau Field. And thank God that never happened. That's a great broadside there, 1940 schedule. Got Fred Thurston's Packer blanket that Lombardi gave them. Incredible stuff. Game used Super Bowl 45 ball. That's a game helmet from back before Aaron switched helmets. That's one that he got a concussion in, I believe. Game used shoes, game used jersey. That's a game used Super Bowl 31 ball from the Packers there, and game used shoes of Favre, and game used jersey and pants, and it goes on and on. In Bart Starr's locker, we've got another game issued, actually practice issued jersey of Bart's. And here we got a proclamation from the state of Wisconsin about Bart Starr Week. And let's see what else. Over here is probably one of the coolest items I have, and that's one of Vince Lombardi's iconic overcoats that you'd see him wearing in just about every picture that you find of him. And that one I've searched for, honestly, for about 15 to 20 years, and I finally found it. So very proud to have that one. There's a bunting from Super Bowl, or I'm sorry, from the Ice Bowl. Give you a close-up of it. There you go. You can see it signed by Bart Starr, Ice Bowl game. Those buntings were all around the field, and managed to get that piece. This is a wall of all my mom's belongings. She was the first majorette with the Green Bay Packer Lumberjack Band in 1941 to 1945. And so this is where I got a lot of my items, believe it or not, from her things is what I should say, that started the collection. All of the things that you're looking at, her photos, the band pictures, the band on the field. She's got field passes. I mean, you look at some of these, it's Brooklyn and Chicago Cardinals and Boston Yanks, and those are some old teams. And so she gave me all of this, and so I had to put it up in my office, and this is actually what started the whole collection right here 25 years ago. Over here we've got some old press books from the 40s and 50s. Here's a great season reservation blank from 1929. There's the 29 team, and here's an original letter from George Calhoun. Incredibly rare to find that. National Football League rules from 1929. And here's a great envelope that was signed by the 1937 Packers with Curly Lambeau and all the players, and a lot of people from the office and coaching staff as well signed that. I've got various broadside schedules up here. Again, These things take up a lot of room, so I've got just a lot more of them, but I'm kind of just out of room at this point until I enlarge again. But this is the Packer Room. So I hope you enjoyed looking around, and I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks.